All right, here we go. Hope everybody's doing well. I think you guys have all started high school softball now. We've got one still out there playing basketball. Congrats to CeeLo. They're in the second round of the playoffs, making a run at state there. But anyway, as promised, I wanted to put together a video for y'all and give you my thoughts and advice regarding some of the differences between high school ball and select ball. A lot of you are, for our team in general, all of y'all are basically sophomores. So, that's an interesting point in time for numerous reasons. And I want to go over some of those here today. Again, this is going to be a little bit shorter video, maybe 15 or 20 minutes. Just wanted to drop a couple bugs in y'all's ear and give you, some encouragement. Hopefully, allow you to think about things with your high school program potentially, in a different light, and even furthermore, hopefully, maybe answer some questions that y'all may have had. So, I didn't really come up with an order for this, but I want to work down through this in a manner where I'm not comparing high school to select, more so just describing the nuances or the differences. I think, a lot of you guys have been playing select ball for, 3 or 4 years now and are somewhat surprised when you go to your high school teams and kind of see the differences there. So, that's none of this stuff is meant to be derogatory. I'm not bashing on high school programs. I'm not bashing on high school coaches. I'm not advocating for anything other than us as young women who are maturing and progressing, through this process to try to just best understand the different situations. Because my goal today is to go over the differences in the situations and explain, that there are some different focuses. So here we go. Let me work down through this. First off, I don't really know a PC way to say this, but y'all have to remember that y'all's bodies are changing, okay, daily. So, a lot of you guys, not trying to sound like your health teacher here, but we're working through puberty. We're, having periods. We are dealing with growing pains and the things that come out of this specific point in time in your life. And I just want to encourage you guys. It's difficult to work through this period and maintain like a consistency athletically sometimes because your freaking bodies are changing so fast that it's almost a full-time job keeping up with that. So if you feel yourself struggling at certain points in time throughout your athletic career in high school, just know that a lot of that can be attributed to things that are out of your control. So that was the first thing. The second thing is that high school programs in general, okay, are designed to do different things than your select program is going to do. And the high school programs are governed by an unofficial set of rules, so to speak. There's, a lot more factors and stuff in play, and meaning a lot more things that you have to tend to, okay? As a head coach of a national select team, myself and the rest of the coaching staff, we really only have to manage like 2 bullet points, okay? Winning and then player development within our program. And we have the ability through tryouts and selective offers to different athletes to build a roster that we feel really confident about, but is very equal or somewhat equal, if you will, in competition, right? So high school programs, they have about 5 to 10 bullet points that they're managing and catering to. So, high school programs in general, from even back in the day when I was in school, are built so that you learn a few different things. One, you have to put in your time and pay your dues. That's, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. From the time you move through high school and you're a freshman to the time you're a senior, the saying is that you have put in your time and paid your dues. There's a big stigma. I don't know if it still exists, but it's still out there. There is a difference in a classification between being an underclassman and an upperclassman. And, there's a rite of passage through that based on an old school set of principles, which I don't necessarily disagree with. But, freshmen and even sophomore, for the most part, playing at the varsity level in high school programs is something that has been coming on more as of late. But, traditionally, it falls in line with, you're going to play varsity when you're a junior and senior, and you're going to play JV when you're a freshman and you're a sophomore. And the basic explanation to that is that there are, so many kids, the rosters are not exclusive. It's a bigger pool of kids. There are different developmental objectives you're trying to achieve through that program, right? JV and varsity. So, by design, high school programs are supposed to be different than select programs. One of the things that you're going to start to understand about high school ball and these 5 or 10 things that I'm talking about them having to manage is the smaller the school, okay, the farther away from your select program that school will operate. And I'm not trying to sound derogatory, but what I mean by that is, high-end 4A, 5A, and 6A programs are probably ran a little bit more similar to your select program or your summer team. And the smaller you go in school size, right, 3A, 2A, 1A, you're going to run into a different set of environmental, how am I trying to say this? You're going to run into different things in a smaller program that you won't necessarily have to face in a larger program. And what I mean by that is smaller programs can have the tendency to have a lot of outside influence in them. And, if as a select coach, I am catering to my 2 bullet points, which is winning and player development inside my program, well, the coaches in these softball programs are, coaching for their jobs per se, but coaching for your job means something different in high school, in a high school program. When I coach for my job on our select team and in our, select program, I'm not having to consider and take into account a lot of the things that the other coaches or coaches at the high school level are. So, high school programs manage a different set of priorities. Also, there's usually only 1 or 2 coaches in a high school program, okay? Those smaller programs, old habits stay in place. It is difficult to take away from the fact that, there's a good old boy theory or syndrome, if you will, that exists in the smaller programs. So, you're now making a lot more people happy inside the program to maintain your position or your job. Whereas, if you've got relationships with athletic directors, if you've got relationships with, district superintendents, if you've got relationships with, whatever, other key admin positions within that district, you may know that coach may know those people. They may have Sunday supper together, so there are certain alliances and things of that nature that present themselves in smaller programs. And look, at the end of the day, that stuff's not like bad. It's not meant to be. I'm not trying to put this out there so that anyone is toxified by it, but you just have to be aware and understand these things, so that it doesn't derail your motivation and your efforts. I don't want any of y'all to walk into your high school programs, and because it's a lot different than your summer program, you lose motivation, you lose focus, and when we start becoming toxic. So I just want to describe that there is a big difference in the public programs. The smaller the school you are, the more of a good old boy scenario that can exist. The larger the school, it's probably going to be it's going to be ran a little bit more professionally. Coaches are making more, athletes are better. There's just more of an alignment with how it is in summer. Okay. So one of the other things is, if you are frustrated with the way that your high school program is ran, what I would encourage you to do is to not quit, okay? Because not playing is not worth it. You're supposed to have fun regardless. And there's a lot of things that we can work on in our high school programs that you don't necessarily have to work on or get the chance to work on in a select program. So, depending upon the size of your school, depending upon how competitive your high school program is in general, your role on your high school team could be completely different than the role on your summer team. And you got to be good at understanding that it's okay for those environments not to be the same. But, maybe I'm going to have a chance to get some different things out of this involvement with my high school program. And those things are going to benefit me too. Staying motivated and positive, being a good teammate, and working on things you may not normally work on are, all things that present themselves as options to you when you're on your high school program or when you're in your high school programs. The mindset that you can't get anything out of your high school program is something that I want you all to eliminate, okay? And the better you get at recognizing a situation for what its worth and value really is, and stop trying maybe to potentially compare it against something else. Because remember, comparison is the thief of joy. And we should be having joy playing these sports. Sports are privileges. It's a luxury. Nobody is going to go make money playing softball. So, the idea is that we get good enough to get a scholarship and can fund, some education and have a good 4 to 6 years of y'all's life where you're building a network and all of those things. So don't lose touch of what each side of the program can give you, select versus high school. And I've got a funny story that I'm going to tell about Ellie when she was in volleyball last year that'll kind of help make sense and speak to what I'm supporting as a coach. One of the things that Ellie experienced this year, is she didn't get to play a lot in volleyball. Last year as a freshman, she was a starter, played 85, 90% of the time. Come this year as a sophomore, she maybe played 15% of the time. And we're very honest in our household. We're athletic. I've got 2 older boys, was very direct with them. And, all of my kids have been, very successful athletically. And it's because one of the mindsets that we operate in at the house here is just being brutally honest. We never beat around the bush. We never make excuses. And we speak to things for exactly the way they are, right? So in Ellie's scenario, she realized, or I should say it once she realized that she probably wasn't be getting very much playing time, it made her feel some kind of way. And she came home and we were talking about it multiple times. And it finally got to the point where I could see that it was kind of creating a little bit of a mental block for her. So I told her to quit. And she looked at me all crazy. And I said, look, if you're not having any fun doing this, and this is the worst thing that you're involved in, quit. And here at Lago, if you quit a sport during the season, you have to run 20 miles before you start the next sport, which I like that as well. Love that. But I was telling Ellie to quit. I said, hell, I'll run the 20 miles with you. You know, it may take us a long time to get that done. But if you're really that unhappy, then I would tell you to quit. Long story short, she didn't want to quit because there's something inside of her that's a fighter. We've parented that. We've helped wire that in deep. And it ended up becoming a unique scenario for us because I sat her down the next day after we had that conversation and I said, listen, this is a good lesson for you. You know, starting every varsity sport your freshman year is something that doesn't happen very often to people. And, you know, you have the opportunity here to learn a lesson that you probably needed to learn anyway, which is, guess what? You're not on the court anymore. But why don't you learn how to be an outstanding teammate? Why don't you learn how to work on other elements of your game and X, Y, and Z? So anyway, in short, you know, she doesn't play club volleyball or any of those things. But my whole point in bringing that up is, you know, it's never worth quitting. Because if you're an athlete, there's always something that you can get out of that. And not to mention, you're not doing anything else. So, you know, as you become more focused on what your end game is going to be, trajectory, whether it's college, you know, or you just want to finish with the best stats possible, or in high school and select, just realize that there's something that you can get out of every element of those programs, you know, on both sides of that. And, you know, a couple things here in closing, just as we, you know, talk about that is players, you have to understand that if you've got an old school softball coach, okay, and you're a freshman or a sophomore, there are certain mannerisms that these coaches are looking for to qualify for themselves whether or not you're ready to play varsity. Stats are not specifically the only thing that's being analyzed. So in high school, let's say you're neck and neck athletically or even statistically, so to speak, with another couple girls, okay? Let's say those girls are juniors and you're a sophomore. And I'm not picking on anybody, okay? We've had this conversation a few times throughout our progressions here, but I want to be completely honest to you. If you have trouble being loud and communicating loud and being audible in practice, okay? Right, wrong, or indifferent, the coach, let me speak for myself. If I see that behavior in a practice, even if I see phenomenal athleticism, it makes me question whether or not they're really ready to be a contributor at the varsity level, because the way that I see them interacting audibly is telling me that there's a potential that they may be shy or timid or however many words I can come up with, you know, to explain that. And you don't want that, okay? So sports are meant to teach us lessons that we can apply later on in life. And like, the funny thing is something as simple as not being quiet. Okay, I'm not talking about being loud and boisterous and annoying and all those things, but there's a time and a place to be audible. If you're on the softball field and you're not an audible person at home, if you're not an audible person at school, when you step onto that softball field, you got to become audible. If I hear a girl talking or screaming, quite frankly, very loud out on the softball field, regardless of if she's on offense or defense, it's going to give me a high degree of confidence that she's confident and she knows what she's doing because she's not embarrassed to speak up because she might say the wrong thing. All of those things speak to having experience, confidence, like knowledge of the game. You know, so those things start to present as being dependable to a coach. So if any of y'all are out there on the cusp, okay, of JV or varsity, and you're just absolutely dying to get to varsity, and you can't think of any other reason why you're not making that varsity team, check your audibleness, okay? And if it's not taking over a practice, if it's not taking over a play that you're involved in, then that's where you can focus your attention, okay? So I just wanted to say that about the players. I know a few of you, nobody on our team is like a mute and quiet to the point where they don't speak, but I know there's a handful of y'all that sometimes, are a little bit quieter than others. And I just want to give you some encouragement and a vote of confidence. Turn that knob up, okay? Be uncomfortable with it. Give it an ugly 100. Nobody cares how you sound, okay? It's just more important to be able to hear the athlete say something from a coach's perspective, so I know she knows how to do it. And then in turn, it kind of, I don't know, makes the coaches feel a little bit more comfortable. As far as whether or not you make JV or varsity, I want to tell you as a head coach of a national select team, I could care less, honestly. What I would prioritize, if I had to pick which one of those teams you guys were on, I don't care. I want you to be on whichever one of those teams is going to give you the most reps and the most playing time. I don't care about varsity versus JV. And some of you guys need to be okay with understanding that it's just part of the progression. So, keep your head down, keep your nose down, and be working on stuff. And don't be comparing. One of the other things I'll say, okay, I know we've got a handful of pitchers on our team here, our Blaze team, and I know you guys are all dispersed over the hill country. And there are certain points in time where pitchers need to understand how they should be utilized. And one of the things that I am adamant about y'all understanding is you have to become mature as a pitcher. You have to be able to recognize your body and the situation that you're involved in. You have to be able to recognize when you don't have any more to give, because what you're able to give is so far below standard that it's not worth giving. And we may be putting ourselves into an environment where we could cause injury, okay? What do I mean by that? This is a hot topic, or could be a hot topic, but I don't want it to be. I just want you girls that are pitchers to understand from a father's perspective and a coach of a national select team's perspective that you have to have borders and boundaries to yourself as an individual, okay? You're taught that from the day you understand things, right? Like establishing boundaries and borders are healthy. As a pitcher, you got to have a boundary or a border or a limit on the amount of pitches, okay, that you are acceptable to throwing in a game. And if you've got multiple games in a day, the next limitation would be, how many overall pitches in a day am I willing or capable or okay throwing? And sometimes that's hard for y'all at your age to come up with that, right? I mean, wish we could trust every coach that we ever played for, but sometimes that's not the case. So in return, pitchers, you need to make sure you have consulted with some people that you trust, some coaches that you trust, or your dad, right? Or both. And y'all need to come up with and be okay understanding that there's just simply going to be some framework that you're going to operate in. And no situation or coach is going to get you to operate outside of that framework, okay? I know that underhand pitching is a lot less detrimental than overhand pitching, but at the end of the day, you pitchers still just need to be made aware of that. So, make sure you have a per game pitching limit. Consult, discuss, be smart, okay? You have to be smart as an athlete. There's no reason to throw an absurd amount of pitches for just simply a game, right? Is it a championship? No. Is it a qualifier? No. Understand the environment you're in. Pitchers, if you don't have the ability to say, I'm done, then you leave the door open for someone to potentially take advantage of you, increasing your risk for injury or long-term damage. And that's probably the most negative thing I'll say about it. But the reality is you got to look out for yourself, and yes, coaches in general should have things in place that don't force you as a 15, 16, 17-year-old athlete to think about it like that. But listen, this is your future that we're talking about. So I don't care what anybody tells you. You got to be comfortable safeguarding that, okay? And if you want some advice from myself or any of us coaches, we would be willing to do any of that for you. And again, I'm not trying to create a wedge or division or talk down on high school programs or even select programs. All I'm saying is that we're all human. I've made, my fair share of mistakes, and you don't want someone else's lack of knowledge or IQ allowing a situation for them to make a mistake and you're the one that has to pay for it type of deal. So this is more of just a kind of a PSA to all the pitchers. In closing, stay motivated, okay? Figure out some things to work on during your high school season. Care less about JV versus varsity, and keep sharpening your sword because we have a rock star roster put together, okay? We're at 12 girls right now, and when we fire up here in a couple months, when y'all are done, we're going to hit the ground running. There may be a chance we pick up one more girl. I think we're kind of still in the market for that bracket level catcher with the bat. But outside of that, look, the roster's locked down and we're ready to go. And I know some of you guys are chomping at the bit because you enjoy and appreciate, our select environment. But in the meantime, do what you're supposed to do, represent your high school programs, okay, and get better at something. And start posting some cool stories to GroupMe so I know what's happening with y'all, all right? All right, that wasn't very well put together, but I just wanted to get it off my chest and kind of seed some of that stuff for y'all. So I hope you guys are having a good season. Get back to work, and I'll see y'all soon, okay? Love you guys. Bye.